quite a moment here. They allowed Biden to actually walk down the stairs and venture out into public, not just public, but a foreign country. It was Poland. He met with the Polish prime minister over there. No spectacular Biden gaffes, so it didn't get a lot of attention, but their conversation was interesting. Poland was asking America to increase its military presence in Central and Eastern Europe and in Poland. Why? Well, it's because they're just a little bit nervous about, Putin seemingly concerned about Russia's active aggression in Crimea. After all, the Polish prime minister recently warned, quote, "The world stands on the brink of conflict, the consequences of which are not foreseen." Trouble. Poland shares borders with Ukraine and Kaliningrad, and there are no natural barriers that will help shield Poland from Russia, and it's a sign. It's just like, yeah, that's it. Really? This morning I came in and I saw this story. Polish men in London are getting military papers, and they are being called up into service. And they're told the call-ups are just routine, but many people are saying this is the first time this has ever happened in Poland, and it's not as if they're unaware of what Putin is up to. So what is happening? Poland has been one of the few in the region who haven't openly been hostile towards America. In the event Putin infringed on Poland, is this what Hitler did? And do we go in and help? Buck is here from TheBlaze. How you doing, Buck?
Good to see you, Glenn.
How's the radio show going?
I love the radio show.
It's great, isn't it?
A lot of fun.
In case you don't know, Buck is following me now on the Blaze radio network, so you're on at noon Eastern. Okay. First of all, do you know anything about the Polish call-ups?
Yeah, I read this piece about it, and what it does is it gives you a sense that Europe wants to at least take seriously the prospect that President Obama is not taking seriously what Putin is doing. They have to prepare themselves for the possibility that they may, in some instance, be going it alone here. Now, it's not that Putin has to invade necessarily to exert a lot of influence on these areas. As we know, now most of this country seems more familiar with the idea of the energy weapon, which Putin yields very effectively, has wielded in the past and continues to use at his discretion. But when you look at some of these other areas, there are many ways that he could exert political pressure. He wants puppet regimes. You pointed out the geography of this area. Part of this is that he wants at least a buffer between a land buffer, meaning states that are basically his little cronies, between himself and between the NATO countries, the real NATO countries, of which Poland is one, of course. But he would like to have a little strip of countries that are sort of pro-Kremlin, doesn't have to worry about it because Russia suffers from a territorial insecurity as well. It doesn't have any natural borders. So as I'm wargaming this literally in my head this morning, I'm like, okay, I'm the president. I'm so weak. Nobody's taking us seriously anymore. We don't have the resources. We don't have the cash. We don't have our military stretched too thin. What the hell do you do? Because if you let him go and if he's like, it's candy stores open and nobody's going to call the police. Police aren't ever coming. It's Detroit. It's the Wild West. He takes it. And he keeps going, and if nobody ever stops him, you're entering the zone of a repeat of World War II. But if you do try to stop him, you're in the territory of World War II. Well, this is why setting expectations from the administration perspective, and actually, we can't say drawing red lines anymore. They've ruined that for us. So we have to find, drawing a line in the sand or whatever.
But nobody takes him serious.
But no one takes him seriously. But there is no other option, because if you don't say at this point in time that NATO countries will be defended with U.S. military might, then the whole NATO alliance collapses. Now, that's something that we could discuss, whether we still need that or not. I think a lot of people might think it's actually more necessary given some of Russia's ambitions, but maybe not. But that's where the administration has to go, because otherwise you fall into the same thing that happened.
Does NATO even hold? Do you hold? I mean, this war game is out. Here, let me start here. This morning I went into the radio studio. And do you remember that what I used to write on the board at Fox? And I said, it was right after Tunisia. I said it's going to cascade, it's going to sweep the Middle East, and then it's going to pop up into Europe, and it's going to destabilize Europe and the Western world. So I kind of added that. Unrest will spread. Communist, radicals, Islamists will work together to destabilize the Middle East and the Western world. Here's where I started at. So spread to Europe. First attempt to restore the Soviet borders. The enemies of America will see our lack of unity, military capability, and financial resolve and transform or collapse the U.S. or the Western world. And you're looking at what's left on that. China, Russia, socialist kind of outliers, and poverty zones. Is that I mean, is that crazy, or does that look like that is a possibility?
Well, there's a lot going on there, but in the case of Russia, you're certainly seeing a resurgence that's only possible because of the complacency and the divisions that exist now in what we refer to as the Western world, which is really America, everything else in our general hemisphere, and then Europe. And that's usually when. But
if we don't act, the Western world is Europe. Europe is on the brink. I mean, Rome is Detroit now. Rome is declaring bankruptcy, and so Rome is turning into Detroit. Nobody has any money in the West. Nobody has any spine in the West. So what the hell happens?
What happens are the countries that have interests that don't coincide with ours, or in fact are in opposition to ours, like China, like Russia, like we always think of Islam in this very sort of broad context, and it's this patchwork of different, but there's also Islam as it exists in the Middle East and actually can operate as an entity in that respect.
In a caliphate sort of way.
In a caliphate sort of way, with the Saudis and the other Gulf states writing the checks and the foot soldiers coming from those in other countries. So these are civilizational clashes. I mean, this is actually what we're seeing, the rise of those old, not just great power politics, but great civilizational politics and the clashes that come from them pursuing their own interests.
So I'm the president of you're the president of the United States, and I'm you. And I walk in and I say, Mr. President, Poland wants more troops. He's just taken Crimea. He's annexed it. It looks like he's going to take all of the Ukraine, and then Poland is asking for our help, and they think he's going to come in. If he goes into Poland, what do we do, Mr. President? What do you want? What do we do?
If he goes into Poland, we are obligated under. If we don't defend NATO countries, then our word, our treaties, everything we've signed with every country in the world is essentially meaningless.
How does that end?
Well, that ends if we don't do anything.
No, if we do go into Poland.
We would. The good news is that we would still smack around the Russian military without too much trouble.
I'm not worried about smacking around the Russian military as much as I am the dollar. I mean, Russia and China. Paulson already said that Russia will collapse the dollar. They tried to in 2008. China wouldn't go along. Well, China's off that boat now. That gravy train, that sailed a long time ago. And 2008, after that happened, China's foreign minister said, do not dishonor our investment. Well, we've dishonored it 6 ways to Sunday. So it's not too hard to believe that you financially, because we've rotted ourselves, you pretty easily financially just collapse us, and we no longer have the ability to fight anything really of any significance.
That's the long game, and that's the strategic positioning that you can see some of these other powers. When people say, oh, it's not a new Cold War, that's true, because that's one ideology squaring off against another around the entire world. What we have now is something different than that. We have us, the West, our civilization, and what we've tried to promulgate over these recent decades, and then all these other countries that don't necessarily agree with us on things, that view us as an enemy or at least oppositional to many of their national ambitions. And as our economy weakens, they get stronger in their regions. Regional powers have aspirations of becoming global powers. That's always been the case. That's the case now. Russia, China. There was just a poll a week ago that 63% of Russians think they're a global power today. And well, we can laugh at that and say that. I don't think we'd laugh at it, but we could say that's not true. It's not true now. But look where they were a few decades ago. We were worried about mutually assured destruction.
Right.
They know that there's an ebb and flow to these things. They're prepared for us to be on the downward spiral. They're there to pick up the pieces.
What's the thing that keeps you up at night on this particular story?
On Russia specifically?
On Russia with Poland and what they're doing. Do you agree that they're trying to restore the Soviet borders?
Yeah, they're definitely trying to at least exert influence and control. Control doesn't have to be with troops, right?
But they'll do like Crimea. They'll just reestablish all of it, and
they can reconstitute it. What concerns me, and this is always, guys in the intelligence community, guys in the Pentagon, they're always worried about miscalculation because we like to base all of our assessments on they would never do that. That's crazy because then we do this and they do that and it goes out of control. Right. Guess what? Didn't stop Saddam from invading Kuwait, didn't stop Milosevic from slaughtering his people in Yugoslavia, hasn't stopped tyrants and lunatics going back for decades, hundreds of years, really ever. It's not going to stop them now.
And it's not. It's different now because we don't have the almighty dollar. The almighty dollar is not so almighty anymore.
And if we can't hold it together with our currency, we're not going to be able to hold it together with our military either. This global order that we've been relying on for a long time now, this could be the beginning of the end of that. That's actually what keeps me up at night because now you've got countries like China and Russia that are less moral than we are as governments and as political entities. They are going to have more control. That was fun, though.
Always good to see Buck. You got to come back a lot. Back in a minute.